Hello everyone, I'm Cole Powell. I'm here again with Pathways to Pillars. I've been thinking about a subject that I'd like to talk about today, and I think that there's a lot of people that can relate to this subject. The subject is about, PTSD, you know, and I know that there's so many different stigmas that it comes with PTSD and a lot of misunderstandings about it, and I just want to explain how I feel about it, what I think it is, and how I've tried to move past it. We hear a lot about PTSD being part of law enforcement, being part of people in the military coming back from war, and how they struggle with it. And we hear about it with abused victims, sexually abused victims, and people in violent situations and stuff like that. But a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people understand that people that have been incarcerated for more than 1 year are considered to have PTSD. People that have been kidnapped in drug dealing situations or sex trafficked or been in domestic violence all have these symptoms of PTSD. These different traumas and stuff that are causing that PTSD to happen in their life. And I remember there was times where my PTSD within myself was so bad that I would just stare at the ground for hours. I would stare at the wall for hours, and I would just stare off past people and look through people. And it's scary. It's a scary, real, symptoms that happen, and it's so fearful, and you lose so much. The worst thing about it for me was that I lost so much time just staring off into space, so much time not being present in my life, where people could be moving around me, whatever. They could, life would just go on, and I just wasn't paying attention. I just wasn't present because I was just so filled of trauma. And I've been thankful to be able to work, through that a little bit. I've been able to heal a little bit from that. And it's taken almost 6 years of sobriety to be able to work past some of those thoughts and feelings, when in my addictions and stuff with methamphetamines and heroin and cocaine and all these different things, they say that a lot of people think, oh, it leaves your system within 24 hours, or it leaves your system within 72 hours, or it leaves your system within a month from smoking pot. But what they don't understand, and what I've realized, is that it doesn't really start, your mind doesn't really start clearing up. Your body language, your activities that you do, the way, your swagger, the way you walk, the way you think, the way you deal with people, your cognition, it takes about 5 years to start firing off correctly and everything. And the PTSD affects that even more traumatically. So it becomes very scary, and we have to recognize this thing, I believe, and be honest about it with ourselves. I've had to be honest with myself about it. And as a man, I get scared. I'm like, I don't want to admit that, hey, I have PTSD, or I'm acting weird or whatever, but I had to stop thinking and worrying about what other people thought. And I had to start being more present in the moment. That's one of the things that I used, was when I started going off into my PTSD episode, and I would be staring off into space, or having a panic attack or anxiety attacks, or thinking suicidal ideologies and stuff, or trying even to attempt suicide and everything. I had to remember to take deep breaths. I had to get focused on what was in my surroundings. I had to go outside and feel the heat on my skin and on my face, and feel the breeze and hear the birds chirp, different things like that, and just be focused on those things, and just get back to the moment and what's going on. And I started doing those types of things. Then I started, when I would read a book, I would be reading a book, and I would get 5-10 pages, maybe even a chapter, and don't even remember what I read, because I was just thinking and meditating on all this trauma that caused that PTSD and everything. And so I started just, stopping myself. And sometimes it would take me 2-3 pages, maybe 20 pages in the beginning. and everything. And I would stop myself. Oh, you're not paying attention. Come on, you have to pay attention. And I had to be like present in that and make myself do that. Like auto-suggesting that to myself. Like, hey, you have to stop. And so I would stop and I'd read it again. And I'd stop and read it again. But I ended up ultimately doing it with the Bible. And I would read a scripture. Sometimes I'd get a chapter, didn't remember nothing. I'd go back. Like, Lord, help me. I pray about it and everything. And then the Lord would help me with that. And that's how I ended up ultimately coming out of that. You know, and I still have episodes here and there. I had an episode even last night, you know, where I woke up screaming and I thought somebody was holding me down and I couldn't breathe. And I scream a bloody murder and running through my house, checking everything. Like, these things still happen to us. And we have to be cognitive of it. And we got to be prepared for it, you know. So I've created different tools to be prepared for that. To say, hey, that's not realistic. How am I going to get present again? And calm myself down and think rationally. Because that was where I failed in my recovery a lot of times, was not being able to be rational and not being able to stop and be able to think about it. For when it came to relationships, with coming to problems, different things like that, I had to stop and just calm myself down. And sometimes I made a point to say, hey, if there's a big issue, I can't talk about it for 72 hours. And I made a working agreement with myself, saying I cannot talk to nobody about this issue for 72 hours until I can think rationally, so that I don't hurt somebody's feelings, so that I don't abuse them in some way, shape, or form because of the way that I react instead of respond. So I had to really take my time and start creating these things and sit in those uncomfortable feelings and journal about them. And one of the things that I created while journaling was, these are my thoughts that I wrote while incarcerated about my PTSD, you know, and I want to share them with you guys. So here's the thing I began to see about PTSD, okay? Well, some people think it's just all in my head, that it's just up here just kicking it, you know, and that I'm making this thing up, that I could just snap out of it at a moment's notice, okay? And it's just not realistic, okay? Or maybe even I use a lot of willpower, that I could use a lot of willpower, and somehow that I'll just snap right out of it, you know? And I think other people believe that I just manufacture it as a way to attain some secondary gains in life. But that is just not the case, okay? In any way, shape, or form, it's not the case with me. I believe it is a chemical change that happens in my thinking, okay? That it takes place there in my thinking patterns, which causes what I call internal depression. And a depression that just engulfs my inside, my heart, my mind, okay? Or maybe even a sense of mental cancer eating away at me. It feels like as much as I want to overcome the symptoms, they just won't let go of me. So I feel like I end up walking in circles, okay? Learning lessons over and over and over, okay? Holding myself hostage to places like jails, prisons, and institutions. And people. I even hold myself hostage to people. Past associates, gangs, convicts, ex-girlfriends, babies' moms, just unhealthy relationships. But I felt the most comfortable in those. That's where I felt the most comfortable. And I felt the most comfortable in trauma and drama and hardship. That's where I thrived. I thrived in the gutter. I thrived in the struggle. I thrived in violent situations, in drug situations, in gangbanging situations. I thrived in that. And yes, I even felt safe there at times. Because the alternative would mean facing the unknown. The unknown was so scary to me. And what is crazy is I used to love the unknown when I was young. I used to do crazy BMX jumps on my bike. Go to boom, hit the bike jumps, do all kinds of crazy BMX jumps. I jump off of cliffs into lakes and rivers and stuff, you know. And I would drive and or ride motorcycles at over 100 miles per hour. But after looking at all of this time in prison that I facing hundreds of years in prison, okay, and losing the woman I thought was my soulmate, as well as losing so many of the people I have loved. A lot of my loved ones. I've lost about 29 loved ones in the last 4 years. Okay? That rush has lost its appeal to me. The rush and the adrenaline rush and that type of lifestyle, it's lost its appeal in me now. Okay? And I have retreated into, at one point I retreated into what has been the safest for me. And that is not to allow anyone to get close to me. Or to get to know the real me, to get to know Cole. I used to go by a Mack truck and everything, and I never let nobody get to know Cole in my past. And for sure, not love me in any way, shape, or form, because it would hurt too much for me to allow somebody to love me. But now, because of the reckless love of Jesus Christ for me, and for him coming into the deepest, darkest places in the Colorado prison system that I was in and give me a new hope, I feel like the chains of PTSD are breaking and falling away. One destructive thought and one destructive behavior at a time. And I give all thanks to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I thank you guys so much. You guys, I'm excited about being with you guys, and I can't wait to share some more with you guys. Thank you.